Hi guys, it's Katrina from Blue Ridge Diva Designs, and I'm here today, pardon the zooming, to show you guys what I've been working on lately. I've been working on some bezeling, and I'm using gemstones. Christmas is coming up, and I'm really starting to work on that. Didn't really get into a big Halloween jewelry type of a thing, but what I've been working on is working with some faceted, cut fancy gemstones that I purchased recently. As you can see, here's a smoky topaz that I've set using some 15-0 golds and some berry bronzed Delica 11-0s here. And I've created this round-shaped bezel here on this one. The stone itself is actually an oval shape. I don't know if you can see inside the back side of this bezel here, but you can see how I've created the bezel using smaller amounts of seed beads and smaller seed beads, etc., to create these little settings. And I really like the way this one came out. It's really pretty. Then I used another oval here. I used an amethyst here, and you can see a little bit better that the stone is oval shaped here on the back because I haven't created a band or anything for it yet. And you can see that the shape of the stone is really quite oval, but on the top, on the embellished part, which you'll see on the top, I have squared it off a little bit, and it looks like a little rectangular shape. And then this one here is just it was a beautiful round faceted. I think it's a quartz. It might be a clear cut tourmaline, but I'm pretty sure it's just a quartz. And it was really quite beautiful. And so I've just left it and created a round bezeling around it. This was the first one I played around with, and as you can see, I used some black fireline there. This one I'll be redoing later for a project tutorial, but I just wanted to give you a quick look at it. All right, now what I'm going to work on today for you guys is actually to do a bezel set for this beautiful cabochon. And this cabochon, I measured it out. It's 26 millimeters from this end to this end. It's a rhodonite, the beautiful pink and black. It's a gorgeous, lovely little cabochon. And what I'm going to be using today to set this particular stone are these 4 millimeter Valentinite by crystal bicones. There's a Preciosa. I'll be using these galvanized silver 11-0 Delicas. I have some transparent silver lined pewter 15-0 Delicas that I'll also be using. I'll be also using these Toho pink galvanized 15-0s. And I'll be using a size 12 beading needle because I'm using a lot of 15-0s and I have to make several passes through. So I'm going to use the size 12 beading needle, and I'm going to be using the 6-pound fire line in the smoke. Now, the first thing I did to determine what I would need to go, as far as crystals go around my bezel was I laid these out, and I kind of separated them out just a little bit like this. I put one at the top, one at the bottom. Then I spaced them out evenly around the stone like this. And when I first laid it out, I had 12 crystals around the outside edge. But I knew I had to add seed beads in there. So what I did was I started picking up on my needle a 15-0 Delica, an 11-0 Delica, and a 15-0 Delica. So I had the pewter, the silver, the pewter, and then a 4 millimeter. And I repeated this pattern, and I figured out, I laid it around and looked around, and I figured out that I only needed 10 of those sets. So the set, once again, is a 15-0 silver-lined pewter Delica, a silver, galvanized silver 11-0 Delica, then another 15-0, and then my 4 millimeter. So this is my set, and I had to pick that up 10 times. And once I did that, I figured out that I only would need the 10 crystals to form the embellished top portion of this bezel that I'm going to be creating. So I went ahead and I picked up 10 sets, and Then I pass my needle back up through the first 3 seed beads, the 4mm crystal, and then up through the next 2 seed beads. So what you'll want to do is pick up your set of 10 sets of 15-0, 11-0, 15-0, 4mm. Pick that up 10 times. Come to the bottom of where your tail thread is, pass up through the 15-0, the 11-0, the 15-0, the 4mm, the 15-0, and then the 11-0, and pull your thread, and you'll have formed your loop. Leaving yourself, I've left myself about roughly 5 inches of tail thread here. Now, this is what I want for, to be the top portion of my bezel. And because I want to see my beautiful crystals here along the outside edge on the top where the rounded part of the cabochon is. So now what I need to do now is I need to form my beadwork where it will come down the side here of my cabochon. And then I need to form some beadwork here around the bottom edge of my flat edge of my cabochon in order to capture this cab within these beads like this and form the bezel. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create some right angle weave units along the outside edge of this little loop of crystals that I have here. And I'm going to be using my 11-0 delicas in each set to start creating these right angle weave units. What I'm going to do that, coming out my 11-0, so I'm going to pick up a 15-0, and for this portion of these right angle weaves, I'm going to be using my pink Toho 15-0s, galvanized pink. So I'll pick up a pink 15-0, a 11-0 delica silver, then a 15-0. And I'll have these 3 beads on my needle, and this is what I'm going to be working with. So let me come out just a little. All right, hopefully that's a little clearer. Now, I'm coming out of this delica, and what I'm going to need to do is take my needle and come back through the opposite side of the delica where my working thread is coming out. I want to pass through that bead, the 15-0, the 4mm, the 15-0, and the next delica. You can get a better look at where my needle's coming through. Back through the delica my thread's coming out of, through that bead, the 15-0, the 4mm, the 15-0, then the delica. And pull. And I've created my little unit of right angle weave here. And I'm in position to create the next one. So once again, I'm just going to pick up a pink galvanized 15-0, a silver delica 11-0, and a 15-0 pink. I'm coming out of this delica here. I want to take my needle, pass back through that same delica, the 15-0, the 4mm, the 15-0, and the delica next in line. So those 5 beads. And pull my thread. And because I didn't tie a knot and around my base unit here, I'm just going to have to keep working with my tension, holding my tail thread like that, and keeping my tension as I work along. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue on picking up the pink 15-0, an 11-0 silver delica, and a pink 15-0, passing through that same set of 5 beads, starting with the one that my tail thread or my working thread is coming out of, and ending where in the delica, the 11-0 delica, in the next set going forward until I get all the way around my initial base unit here. So I'm going to pause for just a moment till I get all my little right angle weave units created here, and I'll be right back, and we'll move forward. Alright guys, so I've went around and I've created my right angle weave units around the 11-0 delicas, and I've come back around here to where my tail thread is. So I created this last unit right here, right angle weave, and I passed through the 15-0 next to it, and then the 4mm. Now here's my tail thread. So at this particular point, I have the option of tying a knot or simply working on through to the delicate and creating my last unit. Now I don't really know exactly, because I'm creating this as I go. I'm showing you guys how I figure it out and how I design it. So I'm not going to tie a knot here because I don't know if I'm going to need to get back through these 15-0s right here. How many more times I'll have to go through them. So instead of tying a knot, I'm just going to pass through the next 15-0 and the 11-0 delicate. Then I'm going to create my last unit of right angle weave using my pink 15-0, an 11-0 silver delicate, my pink 15-0, and just do exactly what I've been doing. Pass back through the delicate I'm coming out of, the next 15-0, the 4mm, the next 15-0, and then the delicate. So I'm going through the same 5 beads sequence that I've been doing all the way around and creating my last unit. And I'll be coming out of the initial delicate where I made my first unit of right angle weave. Make sure I don't get my tail thread caught up in there. And there we go. And so now I'm coming out the same delicate where I started my units of 15-0s. Now I need to be coming out of the delicate. Let me make sure you guys can see. So I'm coming out of this delicate here at the bottom between the two 15-0s of pewter. I need to be coming out of the delicate here at the top of the unit between the two 15-0 pinks. So I'll just come up through the 15-0 pink on the same side where my working thread is coming out near. Pull my thread through just like that. And then I'm going to have to pass back through my delicate here at the top of the unit. And I'm just going to flip my work because I'm left-handed. And I'll be going through in that direction because my working thread's here. So I want to go through my delicate on that same side, and I'll be coming out on the opposite side, just like that. And then I want to get my tail thread kind of like out of my way because it's like seriously irritating me. Okay, so what I did was I passed through, and now I've got my working thread coming out here at the top of this little 11-0. And what I'm going to do is just lay it over my cabochon just like that. And because I didn't pass my needle at the beginning all the way through all of my beads to form my loop, my work's a little bit wonky, but that's okay because it's going to straighten up as I work along. So I'm not really concerned with that at this point in time. And I like the way that looks using the pink, little pink 15-0s here in these units. And these units now, although they're sitting a little wonky on my cabochon now, you need to keep in mind that they're going to be going down the side of the cabochon like this. Let me get my camera, sorry. So they'll be coming down the side of the cabochon towards the flat part is where I'm trying to work around to the sides so I can create a unit of beadwork around this flat part. All right, so I'm in position because I'm coming out of this bead on the top of that right angle weave unit. And what I want to do is create some additional beadwork to continue making my circle just a little bigger, once again, because I have to get around the edge of the cabochon to the bottom. So in order to do that, I'm going to be working with my right angle weave units. So I'm going to just be working with the top delicate sitting in between these pink little 15-0s here and here. So I'll be working across this side of these units. All right. All right. So in order to create some, a bigger circle going this way, coming outwards, I'm going to pick up this delicate and this delicate. And I'm going to be picking up 5. And for this particular part of my beadwork, I'm going to pick up 2 of my 15-0 pewter, 1 silver delicate 11, then 2 more 15-0 of my pewter. And I'm coming out of my delicate here on the left-hand side is I'm going to come to the next delica at the top of one of my right angle weave units, downwards to the left, just like that. And I'm going to pull the thread through and position those 5 beads in this little section here. And then I'm just going to repeat that step till I go all the way around. So I'll pick up 2 of my 15-0s, 1 11-0, and then 2 more of my 15-0s. And with my 5 beads on my needle, I'll come through the 11-0 delica on the next right angle weave unit, coming around clockwise. I guess we'll just call it clockwise, or counterclockwise, I'm sorry. I'm working counterclockwise. And I can flip my work this way. And now I'm going to work clockwise. Alright, so I'll show you one more time. I'm going to pick up 2 15-0 silver line pewters, 1 silver 11-0 delica, 2 more 15-0 pewter delicas. Coming out of this delica here, I'm going to go into the delica next in line at the top of that unit and pull it through. And I'm going to continue on till I get all the way around my beadwork, and then I'll be right back. Alright, so here I have worked around the entire edge of my beadwork using the delicas sitting at the top of my little right angle weave units I created. And I've got my last 5 sequence of my last 5 seed beads here on my needle. My 2 pewter 15s, my silver 11, and my 2 pewter. Now I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to pass back through the original delica here at the top of that right angle weave unit. And it'll be the one sitting up above the 2 pink 15-0s in that right angle weave. I'm going to pull it through. And you'll notice here that I really haven't pulled this tight yet. And the reason that I haven't is because, I want to make sure that it's going to work for my cabochon. And when I pull, you'll see that this is going to fit nicely around here. The edge, the flat edge surface of my cabochon. Let me see if I can lift it up and show you guys. As I pull it out, pull it a little tight, not pull it completely tight, you'll see that my little circle here that I created with those units of seed beads fits really nicely here along this outside flat edge on the back side of my cabochon. And that's exactly what I want. I want it to be just like that. And it fits really well. And that's exactly the way it should be at this point. Now, I need to come across the edge, and I need to work some beadwork here on the flat portion of the cabochon, so that'll hold this back side in. So now I'm coming out of that original delica on the right angle weave unit where I started adding the 5 seed beads in. And so I want to be working with my 11-0s once again. But in order to secure my work up a little bit, I'm going to pass my needle through the very first 2 15-0 pewters and that next delica in line. That's the first group of 5 that I added in the previous round, and I'm going to come through the first 3. And pull my thread. And now I'm coming out of that delica right there. And I sure hope that you guys can get a good look at what I'm talking about. Okay, now I need to create another little, like what I'm going to call it a step up, so I can come up over the edge of my cab, the flat edge. And to do that, once again, I'm going to use right angle weave. And I'm going to create units of right angle weave in these little silver delicas once again. But this time, instead of using another delica, what I'm going to do is use 15-0s. So I'm going to pick up a pink 15-0, then a pewter 15-0, and then a pink 15-0. So I have these 3 15-0s here on my needle, And I'm going to come through this delica. Where my working thread is coming out, I'm coming back through the opposite side of that delica right here to create my unit. I'm going to pull it down. Get my tail thread out of my way. So now I've created that little unit, and I need to move on. So coming out of the delica, I'm going to go through the next two 15-0s right here, the next delica, the next two 15-0s, and the next delica. So I'm going to be working this round with the delicas I added in that seed bead round of the previous round, not the delicas from my round of right angle weave units I first created. So now I'm coming out of the delica. I want to pick up the pink 15-0, the pewter 15-0, and one more pink. So I have those three 15-0s here on my needle. I'm going to pass my needle back through this delica where my working thread is coming out. Then I'm going to go through the two 15-0s directly in front of it, the next delica, the next two 15-0s, and the next delica. And pull it tight, and there I have another unit. And repeat. Show you one more. A pink 15-0, pewter 15-0, pink 15-0. That's what's on my needle. Coming out of this delica, then I'm going to go through the delica from the opposite side, the next two 15-0s, the next delica, the next two 15-0s, and the next delica. So each time I'm coming through three delicas and everything that sits in between. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue on till I get all the way back around, and I'll be right back. All right, so I have continued on around my circle, and I'm getting ready to put my last unit of right angle weave for this round onto my beadwork. So I already picked up a pink 15-0, a pewter, and a pink. I'm coming out of this delica. I'm going to pass through the delica that I'm coming out of. I'm going to go through the next two 15-0s, the next delica, the next two 15-0s, and the next delica, just like I've been doing all the way around. So I'm coming out that third 11-0 delica. I'm going to pull my right ankle weave unit into position. And so now I've created all my units around, and I'm coming out of the delica where I initially started, and there's the first unit I created in this round. So I want to get to the top and be coming out of this pewter 15-0 here. So once again, I'm just going to do what I did previously. I'm coming out on the right hand side of this delica, so I'm going to pass my needle up through the pink 15-0 on the right hand side of my beadwork in that unit. Pull my thread. Let me move my tail. Alright, so I was coming out of this delica, and I went straight up through the 15-0 right here. Now I'm going to come back through this pewter 15-0 here, sitting at the top of that right angle weave unit, and pull my thread. And now I'm into position to work with this last round of right angle weave units that I just created. Now, I'm going to go right ahead and lay this beadwork on top of my cabochon once again. So this is where I'm at, and I can take a measurement and see if I like what's going on and everything looks the way that I'm trying to make it look. All right, so here's the top rounded part of my cab. Here are my 4mm crystals. Here's the back side of my beadwork, and I'm going to just place my cab sitting like that, closest to the crystals, and give it a flip. And now I can see my nice little section of beadwork, the last few rounds that I've done. And I'm in binding my thread. My working thread is here. This is my tail. This is my working thread coming out of this 15-0 here. Now I want to work around and bring these little right angle weave units here that I've created across this back flat side of my beadwork, just like that. And I want to put some beads in between so I can connect them and form another smaller circle here around the back side of this cabochon. So in order to do that, I'm just going to go ahead and lay my cabochon back down. I'm going to see that my working thread is coming out here of this little 15-0 right there. I want to get over to this 15-0 in the next unit, and I want to put a few beads in there. So what I'm going to do on this back side is I'm just going to use some 15-0 seed beads. And I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and just use these pink ones. And I want to use an odd number of beads. That way, if I have to do any more bead work, I'll have a center bead in between each section here that I can work with. And I'll talk to you a little bit about that right now before I move on. For the last few days, when I've been actually playing around with this technique and working with these little different types of gemstones or any type of fancy stone, it can be a chaton, a rivoli, or any type of fancy stone that you have handy. But I've come to one conclusion as I've been doing these different shapes and these different styles, is that initially having an even number of beads in my initial circle seems to work out the best as far as like for when it's coming time to embellish. So I don't mean an even amount of beads, I mean an even amount of sets of beads. Like initially we started with the 3 seed beads in a 4mm in a set, and I made 10 sets of those initially in my very initial circle. And that seems to work out the best for me for developing this technique and figuring out how to do this type of thing on my own. Then, as I using right angle weave, etc., you can use other stitches as well, like peyote and things like that, which is done differently. But then when I want to use seed beads to gain some length here in between those right angle weave units, using an odd number of beads in those sets works better. So in this row here, we picked up 5. So now in this next row, we're getting ready to do this next round, I'm picking up 3. And I just want to, to let you guys know that is how, for me, it seems to work the best. So now my thread is coming out here, and it's on the right-hand side of this 15-0. So I'm just going to go up through this next 15-0 in line with these 3 pink 15-0 seed beads on my thread. And I'm going to pull it into position, and that's what I have. So I'm just going to pick up 3 more, and I'm going to continue around my entire circle, just like that, with using 3 15-0 seed beads in the pink and passing through the pewter 15-0 at the top of each of those right angle weave units I created in the previous round. And I'm just going to pull it around just like this and keep working till I get all the way around, going through the pewter 15-0, picking up my little 3 pinks, and going through the next pewter in the next right angle weave unit. And as you can see, I'm starting to pull a little tighter as I go around, and I'm creating this beautiful little lacy effect. And then pick up 3 more, go through my pewter, and then I'm going to continue till I get all the way around, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so I've worked my way around my entire circle of right angle weave units, adding my 3 pink 15-0s in between each of my 15-0 pewter beads, and I'm around to my last unit, and I have my last 3 15-0s here on my needle, and I need to go up through the initial pewter 15-0 here. Let me bring it in a little bit and I'll show you. Coming out of this pewter bead, and I need to be going into the next pewter bead on the right angle weave units I created in the previous round. So I'm going to pass through that pewter bead and get my tail thread pulled out of the way. Alright, so here's what my bead work is looking like. And as you can see, I've formed a beautiful little circle here. And I can place my cabochon into this setting, just like that. And it fits in there just like a little basket. Now, I'm going to go ahead and pull this beadwork just a little bit tighter and get my tension corrected. And then I'm going to take my thread and I'm going to work myself back around this entire circle one more time, just to reinforce this beadwork at the base of my unit. So I'm coming out of that pewter 15-0 seed bead. I'm going to pass through the next 3 pinks, the pewter, the next pinks, the pewter, and I'm going to work my way all the way around my beadwork, and I'm going to make sure not to skip any beads. So you'll get through as many beads as you can on each pass of your needle, but double check and make sure that your needle's going through all those beads from that previous round and that you're not skipping any. And I'm just going to turn my work a little ways here so I can get into a comfortable beading position and continue with that reinforcement. So through some pinks and my pewter. The 3 pinks and then the pewter. And then through the 3 more pinks, 1 more pewter, and I'm just going to go ahead and get through 1 pink there. Actually, I'm just going to wait. I'm going to go through the pewter because I want to make sure that I'm hitting the beads I just placed in that previous round and not these pink seed beads that are part of the right angle weave units from the round before that. So go through these 3 pink, the pewter, and the next 3 pink, the next pewter, now my work is securing up very nicely, and I'm going to go through the last few segments I just added. So 3 pink, a pewter, 3 pink, and then the pewter. And I want to be coming out of a pewter. So now I've been back through all my beads, and this is what my beadwork looks like. And I have this lovely back side of my bezel created. And I really like the colors. They look really good together. So now I'm going to, I need to be coming up and working my way back up through to the top of my beadwork, which I'm calling the top here, where my 4mm crystals are. And it's not hard to do. You just need to pay attention. You're just going to work through these little right angle weave units that we created. So that is why I wanted to be coming out of one of my pewter beads. That way I know that this seed bead, I'm coming out here to the left of this bead, this pewter bead. I'm going to go down through that pink 15-0 that's part of that right angle weave unit directly under the left side of that pewter bead. And I'm going to pull my thread through that bead first. Then the next part of that right angle weave unit is this 11-0 silver delica. And my thread's on the left, so I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to pass through that delica from left to right, just like that. And now I'm in that line of my beadwork. So I'm in this row. So I'm in this silk, coming out of this silver delica that's sitting underneath my 4mm. I need to get up to this row. So I want to pass through, coming out on the right of that silver delica right here. There are two 15-0 seed beads sitting there. The pewter. I'm going to get my needle into both of those and the next 11-0 in line. Those were part of that row of 5 seed beads that we added. Now, I am coming out of this delica, which is sitting at the base of this right angle weave unit. And I'm coming out here to the right, so I want to pass up through that pink 15-0 seed bead on the right hand side of the unit, pull my thread. Now I'm going to move my work around. I am coming out of this pink seed bead, and I'm coming out here, and in order to follow around, I need to go into the delica, which was part of that right angle weave unit. So my thread is here to the left of that delica, so I'm going to take my needle and go from left to right through that delica, the 11-0 delica, which is part of the right angle weave unit. And now I'm back onto this row of beadwork here at the top. I'm coming out of this delica, and right next to it is the original 15-0s that I added, my very first circle, then my 4mm. So I'm going to go through that 15-0 and that 4mm. And this is what I have. And this is where my working thread is coming out now on the top of my beadwork. And here's my cabochon, and I'm sitting here. And what I want to do now is I want to do some beadwork around utilizing my crystals so that I can pull another layer of beadwork around and just to cinch up and tighten this little circle of crystals around my beautiful cabochon. And that will finish up this bezel setting. Okay. All right. So what I want to do is put some beads here in between these crystals. And here's the sequence that I'm going to be using for this next round. I'm going to pick up 2 11-0 silver delicas, 1 pink 15-0, and 2 more 11-0 delicas. I'm coming out of this 4mm crystal, and I'm going to take my needle and pass through the very next 4mm crystal. And I'm going to pick up that same sequence, which is 2 of my 11-0 silver delicas, 1 of my pink 15-0 galvanized, and 2 more of my silver 11-0 delicas, and go through the very next 4mm. And I'm just going to repeat that pattern till I go all the way around. So I'll do this one more time. 2 11-0s, 1 pink 15, 2 silver delica 11s. Go through the next 4mm crystal in line. And I'm just going to do that all the way around. And when I get back to where I started from, I'll be right back. Alright guys, so I've come all the way around, and as luck would have it, I had my final 4 11-0 delicas laid out, and that was the last of my delicas laid out. I love it when that happens. So I have my 2 11-0s, my pink, and my 2 11-0s on my needle. I am coming out of this 4mm here. I'm going to go through the next 4mm, which is where I originally started from, and I'm going to pass through that 4mm through 2 of my delicas and through my pink 15-0, and make sure that I don't miss my beads, and I get through all 3 of those seed beads. So I put my last 5 beads on, and I've dropped one. I'm glad I looked. Pick that last delica up. Sorry about that. So I have my 5 beads on. I'm going to go through this 4mm as well as these next 2 11-0s and the next pink. from this round that I'm just completing, I'm stepping up into those 3 seed beads and coming out of the pink at the top. All right, so now I've created this nice little ruffle, and I need to pull it all down around my cabochon. So in order to do that, I'm going to be sewing from this seed bead, this pink seed bead, to this pink seed bead, then to this pink seed bead, and so on around my circle. And in between there, I'm going to be using my pewter 15-0s. So I'm going to pick up 2 pewters, 15-0s on my needle, coming out of this pink seed bead to the right hand side. I'm going to pass my needle through this very next pink seed bead here. And I'm going to pull my work. And I'm going to pull that, and you'll see that it forms this nice little cup over the top of my 4mm crystal. So repeat that. I'm going to pick up 2 of my 15-0 pewters, coming out of this pink here, going into the very next pink in line. And while I work this step, I'm going to be keeping my cabochon in my beadwork. Once again, pick up 2 15 pewters, coming out of this pink 15, going into the very next one in line. And I'm going to pull my beadwork nice and snug as I go around. Two more pewter 15s coming out of this pink here, going into this pink, and only the pink. Two more pewter 15s coming out of that pink, go through the next pink one in line. Pulling snug and holding my work nice and tight. 2 pewter coming out of pink, going into pink. And pulling my work nice and snug as I move along. And I'm just going to keep going now till I get all the way around the beadwork. Repeating this step with 15-0s and pulling my work. I'll get my tail thread back down to where it's out of my way. Pick up 2 more 15s, pewter, coming out of pink, going into pink. Pulling my work, tug, snug inwards, just like that. Two more pewters, go through the next pink. Constantly pulling my work and holding my cabochon into place. Now I need to pick up 2 more pewters. And as you can see, I'm back around. So this is my final pink here. And I'm going to go back into this initial pink seed bead where I started. I might have to come out of frame to see because I am a little bit blind. Now I've made it through, so I'm going to pull that into position and pull my beadwork. Now, once again, I just want to reinforce this. And I'm going to pull really secure and snug as I reinforce. So I'm coming out of this pink bead. So I want to pass through the 2 pewters and the pink in front. 2 pewters in the pink. And if you'll notice that I'm pulling nice and snug as I go. And I'm just going to continue on all the way around, passing through the two 15-0 pewters that I added in this past round, and as well as the pink seed bead sitting in between them. And pulling my work nice and snugly and tight as I go. I actually made it through an extra 15-0 there. And then when I finish that, I'll be right back. Alright, so what I've done is I've just went and reinforced this loop. I've done it one time. I've just simply taken my needle and thread and passed through all these little 15-0 seed beads that I added in this past round. And I'm going to finish up coming out. I want to come out of a pink bead. So let me just pass through one more of my pewter and one pink. And I pull it all nice and snug. There's my tail thread, just kind of looking weird. But other than that, I'm pretty satisfied with this little bezel. It looks really pretty on the back. And I like using this right angle weave technique for bezeling because it leaves a lot of your stone, your beautiful stone, shows through in a lot of different areas along your bezeling. And it comes out just really pretty. To me, it's one of the prettiest ways I've found so far to set these beautiful little stones that you can buy, or you may have some in your stash or whatever. But to me, I just think it's absolutely gorgeous. Now that I've created this lovely little bezel, let's talk about what you can do with it. Because I've used 10 of these crystals along my outside edge, I wanted it more or less centered, but it didn't quite come out this way for me on this particular round. I could probably wiggle it around to where I have one crystal directly here at the bottom of the oval and one crystal up here at the top of the oval. And I have enough wiggle room in there in order for me to do that. And that's cool, because if I want to make a pendant, I want this crystal here at the top can be used to create a loop, a bail loop. You can create a pendant. Make a pretty awesome ring. If you like big chunky jewelry, make a really cool ring. And in order to do that, you would just work around until you're coming out of one of your crystals. Here on the end for, like a pendant. And then if you wanted to make a ring out of it, you would work your working thread here. You would come down through your pink, and I'll show you guys how to do that just in a second. But you would work around here to these crystals that are on the side. And you could use, you have one crystal sitting at each end of your oval. So that leaves 4 crystals that are going to, I'm sorry, I'm wiggling this around, guys, but I'm just trying to work it as I go. Sorry about that. Anyhow, you'd have a crystal here and a crystal here to work with if you wanted to create a pendant, or say you wanted a bracelet and you wanted to set your beadwork a long ways this way. You could use these crystals on the end. If you wanted to make a bracelet or choker or something like that, and use your crystal running this length down towards my hand like that, you could use these crystals here on the side in order to create a ring band or, bracelet bands or what have you. But anyhow, in order to do any of that, you're going to have to get from this pink bead where you're currently exiting back down into the beadwork to your crystals. And in order to do that, you're just simply going to follow your thread path. I'm coming out of this pink bead. And remember, when I created this little grouping, I've had 2 silver delicas, a pink bead, and 2 silver delicas. So I'm exiting out of the pink bead. I would just simply want to take my needle and go down through those 2 silver delicas. And make sure that you're getting into your beads. Take your time so that you know that you're actually getting in the delica, which I'm having a hard time seeing. My lighting has changed a little bit here since I started this project. So I'm going through one because that's all I can actually see. And then I'm going to go through the other one. And so I went through both of those delicas following that thread path. And I placed those delicas of pink beads in between these crystals. So now I can just go directly into my crystal because that is the next in my thread path. So there I am. And now I'm exiting out of my 4mm crystal here on one of the ends of my oval. And I can create a bail here if I want using this. If I wanted to continue on around to the side, I would simply just have to follow my thread path. So I'm coming out of that crystal, and sitting here between this crystal and this crystal are those very initial 3 seed beads we strung on at the very start of the project. So there's the 15-0, the silver, and the pewter 15-0s sitting right in there. So you would just simply, you can follow those beads and you won't have any exposed thread. It'll be a little difficult to get into them, but you'll be able to do it. You'll get into your 15-0, your 11-0, and your 15-0 and follow through to the next crystal. Pull your thread. Find them again. The 15-0, which is the pewter here. Then the 11-0 delica, the next 15-0, and the next 4mm crystal. And now my thread is coming out of a crystal on the side if I want to work that way. Now what I'm going to do, because I haven't figured out exactly what I want to do with my beautiful bezel set rhodonite, is I'm just going to work my thread around. Now I'm going to keep tightening up just a little bit here. And then I'm just going to work off and tie some half-inch knots and work off my thread.